Hello, and welcome to my simple little podcast about IEPs and special education, special needs parenting. I'm Lisa Lightner. And if you are watching this on YouTube, I don't know why I look so short today, but I do. Many of you are just listening. I say simple little podcast because I myself listen to podcasts and watch podcasts, and it's weird to me what podcasts have evolved into because of course it evolved out of this thing where you were just like listening to a radio show essentially. But now people video them or, whatever, film them as well. And it's almost like anyone can have their own TV show and it's not just listening. So anyway, but I do not have an editor. My editing skills stink and it's just me. I prepare the outline and the content and the topics. I'm always open to new topics, though, if you'd like. Just go ahead and email me at iep@adayinourshoes.com if you would like to hear about something or if you'd like to be on the podcast. I used to do a lot of podcast interviews, and I'm still willing to do them, but honestly, they are some of the least listened to episodes, and it's a lot of work and time to coordinate schedules and set up recordings and all that. So I just kind of stopped doing them because nobody listened to those, which I thought was odd. But anyway, welcome back to, I really want to spend the next several weeks focusing on IEP content. There's been a lot going on in the world that's been a distraction, and justifiably so. And I understand that my readers and listeners and social media followers are concerned. Again, justifiably so. But my bread and butter is IEPs. That's what a lot of you come here for. And so I want to make sure that I don't, ignore that. And if you want to lobby against something or for something or against something, there's always going to be something. And I think that this is going to be a sustained effort for several months to years, and we need to pace ourselves. And just keep at it. So hopefully you're on my email list. If not, look at the show notes. And if you sign up for any of the freebies that are in the show notes, that will get you on the email list. And every Sunday evening, I publish a new action item for the week. And, hopefully give everybody a week to act and call and write. And I'm still looking for, by the way, I would love if you would email me with any ideas because, I've been doing this a long time, almost 20 years. And so as far as active lobbying for disabilities, and it's just been the MO that you call people, you email them, you write to them, you do op-ed letters, you visit their offices. And all of that is still very important, but I believe that advocacy and lobbying also has to evolve. So while I do have trips planned for local offices, I have a trip planned next month for Washington, D.C. And again, I believe that is very important. I also think that we need to think outside the box and say, like, what else is going to get people's attention besides the calling, the texting, the emailing, the writing, and all that, because I'm still going to do it. But let's be honest, I keep getting voicemail and just leaving voicemail messages. You send an email to them and a couple of days later you get a canned response. So, hopefully I want to keep that volume up so that if something comes up and they receive, 10,000 letters or whatever, my rep, I forget the figure she gave, but it's in the tens of thousands of monthly like outreach that she's receiving. So I do believe that we need to not fade away on that and keep that volume up. But at the same time, I think we need to think of something else to do. And I've been racking my brain now for weeks, like what new and different could we do about this? But anyway, back to IEPs. I've been getting a lot of questions and concerns with not just with my own clients, but people DMing me, emailing me. It seems like social skills is coming up a lot lately again. And I don't know why that is. Of course, there was, in my experience, again, with clients and blog readers and podcast listeners, there was a big issue with social skills after the pandemic. And that makes sense because we were all sitting at home and we weren't socializing. And then those concerns kind of faded away again. So I don't know if it's just winter, that people, stay home and don't do a lot, or if it's the political climate out there that so many people are so kind of adversarial that, I'm not going to lie, I'm estranged from people who I used to be friends with, and I'm estranged from some family members because I do take it personally when you are actively advocating for something that is going to risk my child's life. So, I can't help but take that personally, because without Medicaid, my son will die. And that's not hyperbole. It's not fear mongering. That's my lived reality, is that, through no fault of our own, we cannot afford our child, and we cannot afford his health care. So when I hear people advocating for things that will harm my son, of course, I'm going to go into mama bear mode, but I don't even go into mama bear mode anymore. I just say, you know what? I don't need you in my orbit. That means I have fewer people in my orbit than I did a couple of years ago. So anyway, so I don't know why this decrease in social skills or the increase in social skills concerns is happening, but there are things you can do. Social skills is one area where, yes, IEPs are not just for academics. Schools are required to test or assess and address functional skills and functional communication, social communication, all of that. They are required to do that. However, when you look at the time period that, kids are in school for 170 to 190 days, depending on where you live, 6 hours a day. And then they're with you the other 16 hours a day for those 180 days. And then they're with you 24 hours a day for the other half of the year, right? That you're not in school. So our kids spend far much more time with us than they do with school. And while school certainly presents itself with many, many opportunities for social interaction, parents, if you want your child to be successful, I would encourage you to embrace doing it on your own time, which is exhausting, right? Like, it's exhausting that there are many Saturdays and Sundays when I think, I just want to stay home. I just want to watch football. I just want to watch March Madness, whatever it is. And then I think, nope, I can't. I have an obligation to Kevin to take him out into the world and interact with people. Even if I don't feel like it, I have to do it. Doesn't mean that I don't lay on the couch sometimes. But the other thing, there are interventions, there are things that both parents and schools can do to teach social skills. What I find is that, and if I know I talk about Tara Sumter a lot in executive functioning, and I adore her, but she also talks about how social skills have this incredible foundation of executive functioning skills. And if you don't take care of that first, you're not going to get to social skills. So I just see a lot of IEPs with these mediocre social skills goals. Things like, we'll have a conversation, a volleying conversation and 2 volleys, and, we'll inquire about will inquire about a student, or, whatever, like show interest in a fellow student or something like that. And it lacks that foundational stuff as far as like, does the child have pragmatic language skills? That's usually lacking. So that would have to be addressed by a speech therapist for pragmatic language and functional communication. That's a big one that often gets missed. The other one is, of course, like these executive functions of being able to plan and being able to predict and kind of, motor planning and joint attention and making sure that all the sensory stuff is taken care of. Being able to negotiate with someone, being able to sequencing is a big deal, to be able to see things in a sequence and predict what's going to happen. Because if you can't sequence out, like, then we expect kids to be able to take turns and play a board game with their peers. And it's like, well, you can't do that if you don't understand sequencing, right? Things like that. So I have a list, and I'm going to provide it in the show notes. I have a list of social skills IEP goals, which of course you can browse and take a look at and go, oh, okay, that might be appropriate for my child, and that might be appropriate for my child, or my student. But the other thing is, of course, again, looking at that foundation stuff, because things like emotional self-regulation. If a child, and we know one of the hallmarks of ADHD is impulsive behavior. And if we don't teach a child to calm that and curb that impulsive behavior, like, they're going to be impulsive, and then they're not going to have social relationships. So we just expect them to kind of play with friends, without teaching them those foundational skills. Being overwhelmed, using self-awareness of when you're feeling frustrated, right? And having calming strategies. So if, for example, you have a rules follower kind of kid, and he gets frustrated with others who don't follow the rules, if that child is not taught how to manage that and how to recognize, okay, I'm getting uncomfortable because my peer is not following the rules here, and that's not fair, and all that, then there's outbursts, and then of course no one wants to play with them, right? So again, we need to work on this with our kids, these foundational skills, before we expect them to have these social skills, right? Yeah. So anyway, take a look on my site, because I just updated and added a whole lot of content. I added the interventions, because that's another thing, is I see a lot of expecting kids to have social skills. Okay, we put this social skills goal in their IEP, and we expect them to exhibit these social skills, but not a lot of instruction. And some kids need direct instruction on all this stuff. Expectations, role modeling, role play, guided practice, that real-time feedback in the moment of what is going on. And schools are overwhelmed and understaffed, and so they may not have the people to do that. I'm not saying don't fight for it, but I'm also saying this is the type of thing that you need to take care of on your own time, as far as these scenarios. And again, that real time, in the moment feedback of, hey, here's what's going on here. How did that make you feel? What did you feel before this happened? And all that stuff. The other thing that I heard this idea, 15 years ago, and I still think it's a great idea. Have your child, or you and your child together, watch a soap opera on TV or a novella and turn the volume off, right? No volume, just the people's faces and actions and just the TV show with no sound. And that can be a fantastic way to go over and talk about social skills and facial expressions and reading body language. And what do you think that person's thinking right now? Or what do you think are some things that he may have said to her to have her react like that? Because, of course, soap operas and novellas, they are extra dramatic when it comes to facial expressions and body movements and body language and all that. So it can really be a great way to rehearse at home, even if you don't, if you still want to lay on the couch like I do sometimes, find one and stream it and all that. The other thing that you can do is, have them act out scenarios, right? Role playing. Because all of this is essential. Our kids are, even our typical non-disabled children are lacking in social skills these days because they're spending so much time on their phones. I still have to, it's not just my disabled child that I have to talk to about social skills. My other one, I will all the time, he will tell you that I'm lecturing him and yelling at him about manners and things like that. So anyway, I have 2 great new posts. The social skills IEP goals was just updated yesterday. The evidence-based social skills interventions was just added yesterday. That's brand new content. Definitely check it out. Ask to have your child assessed if you believe they need it. It often is done by a speech therapist, but it can be done by a special ed teacher. Again, you want to have those foundational skills, the executive functions that are necessary to execute social skills, the pragmatic language skills that are necessary to execute social skills, right? And all that fun stuff. Anyway, take care of yourselves, and that's it. I don't know why my video disappeared. Sorry. It's been doing that a lot lately. There it goes. It's still not doing it. All right. Well, anyway, you guys have a great rest of your day, and I will talk to you soon.